You're watching RTV News with me, Jane Mutoni. Veteran politicians here in Rwanda have noted that the country's achievements in the last 28 years are concrete evidence of the unity and reconciliation that has taken place. The government of Rwanda has noted that its aviation agreement with Austria will help Rwanda to fly to that destination with the European Union. A very warm welcome to the news in details. Now, the veteran politicians here in Rwanda have noted that the country's achievements in the last 28 years are concrete evidence of the unity and reconciliation that has taken place. Take a look.
It has now been exactly 28 years to the day since the government of national unity was sworn in after the RPF in Inkotanyi liberated the country in 1994. Yet only 8 of the original 17 cabinet members belong to the party. One of the principles of the RPF has always been the unity of Rwandans, and that is something we had valued as the RPF for years before we came here. We understood that if we were ever to build up this country, we had to fight divisionism. Those are principles we were accustomed to in the RPF, and when the time came, we obviously needed to implement them and could not do it alone. It required that we sit down with the very people we had been fighting, be it politicians or soldiers, to agree on how to go about it. This, however, does not mean that everything went smoothly. Some members of the government of national unity were working with insurgents. Are you familiar with the man who was the Minister of Interior at the time? Rwanda. He was in charge of the country's police force and prisons, yet he went and told Human Rights Watch that inmates were being given their porridge in boots. That was a cabinet member, and I am telling you that it happened. He then fled. Take the man who was sent to be the ambassador of Rwanda in France to open the embassy there, only to pocket the money meant for that and take off. Do you remember what Twagiramungu said a mere 6 months after returning from abroad? During the commemoration period, he asked us how long we would continue crying about what had happened, and that is why the parliament gave him a vote of no confidence. Regardless, the RPF and the government of national unity were not deterred in their efforts. You know the discussions that were held at Village Urugwiro between 98 and 99, bringing together people from different sides, including those who had been important members of Parmehutu MDR during the 60s. They were invited to give their input despite being part of such a bad legacy, because nothing good came from Parmehutu. Regardless, what they had to say was considered, and it is from such meetings that it was agreed that Rwanda's problems are unique, and unique solutions had to be sought, which is how the Gacaca court system arose, and it helped to deal with very important judicial issues, exposing the truth and helping Rwandans to reconcile. Other important decisions were made during those meetings as well, like the establishment of the necessary institutions the country needed. Had the RPF not adopted that strategy right from halting the genocide, none of what has been achieved now would have been possible. No country can develop if its people are not united, and the unity of people is always supported by their culture. Today, younger generations here in Rwanda are not subjected to the sort of hate that resulted in the fastest genocide in recorded human history 28 years ago when the genocide against the Tutsi was implemented. The children we teach today in our schools did not live through the divisionism of the past. Today, children are taught about peace and unity in our country, Rwanda. That is the reason I am confident that in the future, as adults, they will be far more united than we are, which is no small claim. Indeed, over the years, Rwanda's leadership has never undermined the importance of national unity.
After 1994, everything was a priority, and our people were completely broken. But we made 3 fundamental choices that guide us to this day. Choice 1, number 1, we chose to stay together. When the refugees came home, we were choosing to be together. When we released genocide suspects in anticipation of Gacaca, we were choosing to be together. When we passed an inclusive constitution that transcends politics based on division and entrenched the rights of women as full partners in nation building for the first time, we were choosing to be together. When we extended comprehensive new education and health benefits to all our citizens, we were choosing to be together.
28 years after the first government of national unity was sworn in, many Rwandans have continued to refer to the government of Rwanda by that name.
Participants of the Africa Protected Areas Congress point out that human development is based on the environment and therefore it should be well conserved for the well-being of the population and for future generations. Olive Nete has this report.
In the discussions that joined together the former president of Niger, Mahamadou Issoufou, former prime minister of Ethiopia, Haile Mariam Desalegn, and the minister of environment in Rwanda, Dr. Mujawamariya Jean d'Arc, they all reiterated on the relationship between economic development and environment conservation. In particular, the Minister of Environment, Dr. Mujawamariya Jean d'Arc, noted that the environment is important to the society, and that is why they consider environment conservation in all measures taken.
We have understood long ago as Rwanda that you cannot talk about nature without talking about people. And you cannot talk about people without talking about nature. Everything we do, we put people in the center, and we put environment at the heart of every policy, programs, projects. That's why you can see that in this room, the Minister of Environment is seated with the Minister of Finance for her to understand that when she's doing planning in finance, the environment should be at the center.
The former president of Niger, Mahamadou Issoufou, pointed out that the progress made in conserving the environment in Rwanda goes with good governance.
L'homme et la nature ne sont pas des ennemis.
Man and nature are not enemies. Man and nature are allies. Man is part of nature, and man is an element of biodiversity. President Kagame is one of those leaders who have also understood that development must have nature as its priority, because we know our lives and our economy and our prosperity do indeed depend on nature. It is this vision that it is important, the vision of nature-centered and human-centered development. It is this vision that is still taken in the 2063 agenda of the African Union, the agenda of the Africa we want.
Sur la nature, du développement centré.
The conservation of the ecosystem was identified as a responsibility of every human being for their well-being, as well as of the well-being of the future generations, as Haile Mariam Desalegn, former Prime Minister of Ethiopia, explains.
We must remember that this natural heritage does not belong to us only. We are merely its custodians for the generations to come. It is time for us to invest in this endowment for ourselves and the world.
In particular, well-preserving protected areas as well as conserving the environment is viewed as a source of employment to the youth and to address challenges of food security. A challenge still faced in Africa is that human activities are still a threat to the environment, yet they are the ones affected by its damage.
Ces aires protégées permettent bien sûr de protéger la biodiversité.
These protected areas allow, of course, to protect biodiversity. They also allow to preserve the ecosystem. This must be taken into consideration. Unfortunately, Africa has lost 50% of these ecosystems during the last 5 years. The protected areas also allow to promote the sustainable development and also promote community resilience and also assures food and nutritional security. It creates jobs, and this has been widely said, and especially for Africa, which today has at least 12 million of young people entering the labor market each year. So protected areas provide opportunities to create jobs and therefore to fight against poverty.
Promouvoir la santé humaine.
The International Conference on the Africa Protected Areas Congress started on Monday and will end on Saturday. It is expected that in this conference, solutions will be proposed and also establishment of action plans to continue conserving these protected areas. Olive Nete, RTV News.
Thank you, Olive. Now, as Rwanda hosts the ongoing first ever the Africa Protected Areas Congress, RDB's head of tourism and conservation, Ariela Kajeruka, has stated that since 2005, the share of the revenue derived from the country's national parks and given to local communities living around such protected areas has increased from 5% to 10%, which has led to the improvement of the projects involving the people and their contribution to the maintenance of the parks.
They all reiterated on the relationship.
5 protected areas with national parks accounting for
the share of the park's residents doubled from 5% to 10%, as over 800 projects have been funded through the program, whereby close to 8 billion Rwandan francs have been invested in these projects. This has benefited people that live close to parks across the country, and among the major topics that we've discussed is how to put the benefits of the African citizen, as the meeting is about Africa at the forefront.
In Rwanda, there are 105 protected areas, with national parks accounting for 9% of the country's total GDP. Now, the tourist sector accounts for 50% of the country's total GDP. Environmentalists have noted, however, that there is still a huge deficit between the amount of money needed and what is available for Africa's environmental protection projects and activities.
Just for managing protected areas with lions, protected areas that have lions in them, an estimated 1.2 to 2.4 billion is needed annually. Again, that's billion with a B. And yet the parks receive just 381 million per year, resulting in a deficit of up to 2.1 billion. Again, these are not small numbers. They're huge. They're mind-boggling. We need to mobilize resources from private and other public sources to be able to close this gap.
Experts say that Africa is considered to be the heart of the world's ecosystem, as there are fewer activities that affect the climate compared to other continents, only that political cooperation with the private sector is needed in order to achieve the goals of environmental conservation and mitigate the effects of its degradation. Now, moving on, the government of Rwanda has noted that its aviation agreement with Austria will help Rwandair to fly to that destination with the European Union. Precious Kirezi continues with the report.
If Rwandair were able to fly directly to Austria, it would be credited to the agreement between the Austrian and Rwandan governments that was signed by the Austrian ambassador to Rwanda and the Rwandan Minister of Infrastructure, who has further emphasized why this is beneficial.
This agreement is of great importance to our country, which our carrier Rwandair is going to benefit from, especially because it is in line with expansion objectives. An additional international airport in Rwanda is being constructed and will facilitate business and tourism endeavors using aviation.
Austria's ambassador to Rwanda, Christian Fellner, remarked on the good relations the two countries share and pointed out that Austrians want to travel to Rwanda the same way Rwandans do, and this agreement actualizes this desire.
Air transport has become more and more important. Now, COVID has changed things, but we are confident that air transport is going to be very important in future. Kigali, I understand, is going to plans a new airport. Vienna, you know, has the United Nations there. Vienna is a hub in the region, particularly when it comes to the area of Central Europe, where many flights are connecting to other countries.
Austria is one of the countries that was severely affected by the pandemic, especially its aviation sector, which the numbers show came from 319,000 flights in 2019 to 118,000 flights in 2020. Aviation passengers also reduced from a consistent 36 million to 9 million in those 2 consecutive years, whereas aviation passengers in Rwanda reduced from 1.5 million to 661,000. Precious Tilezi, RTV News.
Now, with the rise of COVID-19 cases in Rwanda now a concern, calls have been made for tighter preventive measures, especially in places where the large numbers of people gather. Take a look.
The fact that most preventive measures are no longer mandatory means many people simply ignore them. I still wash my hands before entering, but many people don't, as if the pandemic is no more. Yet it is a fact that washing your hands regularly is important in fighting COVID. We still do it even though it is no longer mandatory. You saw me do it because we have made it our own initiative. After all, it is necessary. Those who understand that the COVID-19 threat, though diminished, is still very real, are calling for the youth volunteers who helped to fight it when it was at its worst to be reinforced. People come from the provinces thinking that COVID is no more because they do not see youth volunteers. Putting them back out there in force would certainly help. The few youth volunteers still working say they are not as effective as they used to be. Some of them openly ask us what we are still doing here, saying the pandemic has passed. It's difficult to make a person who thinks like that understand that the preventive measures are still necessary. We used to have security organs helping us, and now they no longer do. Before, people respected the measures because they could see that they were being enforced, which is why we are asking that backup be provided for us once more. On Monday, Rwanda's Ministry of Health reported that 26 new COVID-19 cases had been detected countrywide, and the virus has killed 5 people in the last week after an extended time with no fatalities. Health officials are warning people against thinking that the pandemic has moved on. I do not believe that people should have automatically concluded that the pandemic had passed just because face masks were no longer mandatory. Such measures had been enforced for 2 years, and their being lifted simply meant that things had improved, nothing more. The World Health Organization is the one that declared it a pandemic, and only it can announce that the threat has passed. The figures I cited, be it here in Rwanda and elsewhere like in the UK, leave no doubt that the threat is still very real. Saying face masks are no longer mandatory did not mean that all measures were to be abandoned. People should still be careful and wash their hands regularly. You cannot suddenly forget the importance of doing that when you had spent the last 2 years doing it. Everybody should act responsibly on this matter wherever they may be. The doctor also confirmed that the country is very much capable of catering to the needs of COVID-19 patients, but stressed that this is not a reason for people to go around taking unnecessary risks, and the general public has been urged to get fully vaccinated against the virus.
The German NGO Cognos intends to open a physiotherapy training center for the blind here in Rwanda, increasing the number of professional physiotherapists in the country and giving them ability to identify breast cancer tumors.
Jean-Claude Bihimbere is blind, but sight is not something he and others like him need to practice physiotherapy.
Okay, the importance of massage for me is when I can get, I can pay rent, I can have something to eat from massage, of course. I can do everything if the clients are available for me.
Since 2017, the organization Seeing Hands Rwanda has trained 50 legally blind people to be massage therapists and has now signed an agreement with the German NGO Cognos that will help it to significantly expand its operations.
Very interested and enthusiastic about developing this program with Seeing Hands Further to educate blind people to become a breast cancer screening specialist, because blind people, due to the missing eyelight, can feel things much better, so they are much more likely to detect breast cancer in very early stage, and we would like to educate them so they can have an important role in society of fighting cancer.
The agreement is being seen as an important development for the entire country.
And this means that we have less than one person per 10,000 people, less than one person physiotherapist per 10,000 people. And as a country, we are increasing healthcare services across the country. You've seen construction of hospitals across the country, and also not necessarily for hospitals, but also there's the need of personalized services. So what we want as Rwanda Polytechnic is to contribute to the skills development and to have professionals working in this field.
The trainees will also be taught how to check for breast cancer tumors. The first signs of breast cancer are usually changes in a person's skin and what may feel like a lump in the breast itself. They can help us with basic screening on a large scale, and when necessary, we can then use X-ray machines in hospitals for mammograms, specifically for people suspected of having breast cancer. Rwanda currently has 400 physiotherapists, but only 70 are officially recognized.
A delegation of parliamentarians from Ghana is currently on a 5-day visit here in Rwanda, and on Monday was received by the country's Speaker of Parliament.
Upon arrival in the country, and after visiting Rwanda's parliament, the Ghanaian MPs told us that they are very excited to be visiting Rwanda.
All over the world is well acknowledged. You are the #1 country in the world with more women in parliament than any other country. And it's because of the system that you've managed to craft together, a system that has married the proportional representation with the first part, the post system, a system that has brought inclusiveness, participation, and a system that has tried to empower and reach out to everybody. And I think that is an opportune time for me to commend Rwanda, particularly His Excellency the President, Paul Kagame, for leading the way, and particularly the Parliament and parliamentarians for focusing more on national issues than on parochial, sectional issues of constituency or individuals.
On her part, Rwanda's Speaker of Parliament, the Honorable Donatille Mukabalisa, noted by the visit by the parliamentarians is meant to strengthen the cooperation that exists between the two parliaments. The delegation also took the time to visit the Kigali Genocide Memorial at Gisozi and were given explanations on the tragedy that befell the country and how Rwandans have been able to rebuild despite such a terrible past.
After listening to the detailed presentation by the tourist guide here, we lost our spirits. Hearts of Rwandese, God Himself will continue to breathe the spirit of forgiveness, love, and unity to Rwandese. God will lift Rwanda higher and use Rwanda as the instrument to change the world.
As part of their study tour, the MPs will also visit different parts of the country and institutions in line with boosting diplomatic relations between Rwanda and their country of Ghana.
Rwanda and UniCredit Bank have signed a loan agreement worth 7.5 million euros, money that will be used to build a state-of-art technical and vocational education training center. Take a look.
The agreement is geared towards helping the Rwandan government towards its goal of increasing the number of students in TVET schools in the country.
I want also to thank you for the concessionality of this support. It is interest-free loan. It has 15% grant element, and it will be implemented by a professional company with a new technology, so to improve the quality of our schools. So we look forward to further cooperation. Probably in the near future, we may agree on other similar projects.
Austria's partnering with Rwanda in this endeavor is seen as an important boost in the cooperation and bilateral relations that exist between the two countries.
We view that as a starting point for a possible deeper cooperation. I mean, we are going to build that now, and then you will see if you are happy with it or not. I hope you will be happy. I hope you will be happy, and this might then invite us all for thinking about more projects in this sector.
The center is to be located in the Kigali Special Economic Zone, and 15% of the loan is actually a grant, with the rest to be paid back over a period of 18 years starting in 2030, interest-free. The government of Rwanda is looking to increase the percentage of students that complete their ordinary level secondary school education in TVET schools to 60%, up from 46.4% back in 2017.
Gweru sector residents in Bugesera district who are engaged in the mining sector have said they are troubled with a long-term lung disease known as silicosis, and others have lost loved ones to the disease. Ghislaine Mugwaneza has this report.
Many residents in Gweru sector, especially in Muyoboro, Gwiminazi and Chimara village, do mining for living. However, some of them lose their lives due to silicosis disease. Those with the sickness have said the negative effects of getting sick of this disease.
I used to work from mining tunnel, except only jumpsuits they would give us. We did not have any other protection. When I started getting sick, I thought it was just cold. As time goes by, I kept getting weak until I failed to eat.
I got married to the dust Minani. He died of silicosis. He first had shortage of breath. Later on, he felt weak. He was weighing 60 kilograms when he got sick, but he died with 42. Even though he's dead, our children are also doing mining for living. According to specialists in respiratory diseases, those in mining and construction sectors are more likely to get sick of silicosis.
Silicosis is caused by inhaling a large amount of silica, a substance naturally found in mining tunnels, stone, rock, sand and clay. When they enter the lungs and a person breathes those every day, the lungs get destroyed slowly by slowly, and a person could start coughing until he fails to breathe. Losing breath results into death for those with silicosis.
Specialists in respiratory diseases have also said that more of those having silicosis come at the hospital after being severely sick. The Secretary General of Rwanda Extractive Industry Workers Union, Andre Mutsindashaka, has noted that miners are sometimes not fully protected from getting silicosis.
There are employers that do not give their employees needed equipment and expect employees to bring their own jumpsuits, head and face protections, masks. They do not care of that. You can find that some employers do have equipment, but the workers have to pay for them, and the law says that the worker should be provided with all needed equipment to enable them to work comfortably. When it's the disease got from the worker's occupation plus not having insurance from RSSB, when it is not done, the mining tunnel owner gets more affected. The problem is that people are not aware of this information. If someone dies, they do not know where to ask for information or seek help from us. We haven't reached in all institutions yet. We are in 70% of local mining companies.
20,000 people are in mining sector. Over 79% of them do not have written contracts, which leave them with no insurance from RSSB. Ghislaine Mugwaneza, RTV News.
Well, there you have it. On behalf of the entire news production team, thank you so much for your company. I'm Jane Motoni. Bye for now.